Welcome to the Explainer. I'm really glad you're here. Today we're taking a super fascinating look at the Washington state judicial system. Okay, let's just dive right into this. Have you ever wondered how people actually find out what goes on inside a courtroom? Or, maybe more importantly, on the flip side, what happens to your highly sensitive personal information if you ever have to go to court yourself? Well, our goal today is twofold. First, we're going to completely demystify how you can access Washington state court records, and then we're going to master the specific legal tools you can use to shield your own sensitive information from the public eye.
Here is our roadmap for the journey today. We're going to start with the public record rule, then walk through accessing court documents and break down record types and fees. After that, we'll pivot to protecting your privacy and finally wrap up with using confidentiality forms. Let's get started.
Section 1. The Public Record Rule. To really understand how this whole system operates, we've got to establish the baseline. So it all starts with one primary rule. And what's really interesting about it, General Rule 31, is how it separates the courts from the rest of the government. You've probably heard of the Public Records Act, right? That covers executive branches and local agencies. But court records? They're a whole different ballgame. They're governed by the Washington Supreme Court under General Rule 31, or GR 31 for short. Under GR 31, the default setting is that most judicial records are just broadly accessible to the public. I mean, unless state law, federal law, or a specific court order restricts access, those records are open. This rule is literally the heartbeat of judicial transparency in Washington. Section 2. Accessing court documents. Knowing that these records are public by default, let's talk about the practical reality of uncovering them. If you want online access to full documents across a bunch of different counties, you're going to need what's called elevated access to the Odyssey portal. And honestly, the rigorous process to get it really shows you just how seriously the state takes security. You can't just go and create an account like it's a social media site. No way. First, you have to submit a formal application to the specific county clerk. Then your request gets sent off to the administrative office of the courts for technical processing, and that can take up to 14 business days. Once you're finally approved, you get an email link that is strictly active for only 48 hours. If you miss that window, you have to start the whole process over. Finally, you have to create a highly secure password. We're talking at least 8 characters, a capital letter, a number, and a special character. It's a ton of hoops to jump through, but it's absolutely crucial for managing such massive amounts of sensitive data. Now, let's say you aren't just looking for a civil dispute, but you really want to find someone's criminal history. Well, relying only on county court records is actually a mistake. Why? Because a county court only knows what was filed in that specific county. So here's the pro tip. You need to cross-reference your court searches with the Washington State Patrol's Watch database. For just an $11 fee, Watch gives you an immediate, consolidated statewide history of arrests and convictions across all Washington law enforcement agencies. If you really want the full picture, combining the court portal with Watch is exactly how the professionals do it. Section 3. Record types and fees. Running these massive systems is incredibly expensive, so let's look at the costs. King County actually has one of the most detailed fee schedules in the state, which makes sense because of the heavy administrative burden of managing millions of files. An online non-certified copy, that's a total bargain at just 25 cents per page. But if you need court staff to do the research for you because, say, you don't have a case number, well, that's going to cost you $30 an hour. Need something processed in a hurry? Yep, there's a $30 expedited processing fee per case for that too. Let's look a bit closer at the biggest difference in that fee schedule, non-certified versus certified copies. If you just want to read up on what happened in a case, a non-certified copy at 25 or 50 cents a page is perfectly fine. But if you need to submit a court document to a bank, a government agency, or maybe another judge, you absolutely must have a certified copy. That costs $5 for the very first page and $1 for each additional page. You might be wondering why the massive price jump. It's because the clerk is officially stamping it with the court seal, proving its origin. That seal is the magic ingredient that makes the document legally actionable outside the courthouse. Section 4. Protecting your privacy. Okay, we've talked a lot about how easy it is to get records, but what if it's your information on the line? This is usually the most pressing concern for anyone entering the legal system, like going through a divorce, a guardianship, or a health crisis. If General Rule 31 throws the courthouse doors wide open, how on earth do you legally keep your most sensitive, personal information from becoming everyone's public reading material? Well, fortunately, the Supreme Court actually built in some pretty powerful shields for citizens. Think of these as your legal shields against public access. First up, we have General Rule 15, which allows you to formally ask the court to seal or redact specific records. But honestly, it's General Rule 22 that is truly your best friend in family and guardianship court. GR 22 automatically seals certain specific forms holding your financial, health, and children's data, provided you file them correctly, of course. Also, as a side note, if you're legally changing your name in Superior Court, state law automatically seals that record to protect you. Section 5. Using confidentiality forms. Knowing the rules is great, but let's talk about the execution. Applying these rules is where people tend to make mistakes. You'll see the actual cover sheets required by the state right here. One is for sealed financial documents, and the other is for sealed personal healthcare records. Notice that little checkbox that says Clerk's Action Required? That is huge. By using these exact forms, you are directly instructing the court clerk to restrict public access to the pages attached behind them. Also, the rules explicitly require that on the first page of your attached document, you have to write the word sealed exactly 1 inch from the top of the page. This just makes sure there is absolutely zero confusion about your intent. Now, please pay really close attention to this next part because it's a critical safety warning printed right on the forms. Sealing a document from the public does not, I repeat, does not, hide it from the other party in your case. The opposing person and their lawyers still have a full legal right to see your sealed documents. So if you are a survivor of domestic violence or you just need to keep your physical location hidden for safety reasons, sealing the file is not enough. You must explicitly cross out or delete your address information from the forms before you ever file them. Finally, you gotta know that the courts are incredibly strict about how these papers physically look. This is governed by State Court Civil Rule 10. Your documents must be printed on one side only. You have to leave a massive 3-inch blank margin at the very top of your first page so the clerk has room to stamp it, and then 1-inch margins everywhere else. The courts also heavily recommend using numbered pleading paper, that paper with the numbers running down the left side. Do not underestimate this step. A simple, tiny mistake at the copier that makes your text overlap into that 3-inch top margin could literally cause the clerk to reject your entire filing. Okay, we have covered an incredible amount of ground today. You now understand the power of General Rule 31, the rigorous portal process to access these massive archives, the specific fees involved, and precisely how to deploy General Rules 15 and 22 to lock down your personal life. Which leaves me with one final question for you. Now that you have the legal tools and the know-how, will your next court filing simply be an open public record, or will you take action and take control of your legal privacy? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer and keep learning.